Daphne felt the heavy, suffocating weight of the wedding gown. A magnificent, pearl-stitched shroud flown in from Milan. The grand ballroom reeked of expensive white lilies and emotional surrender, a fragrance that felt like the death of her spirit. She was mere minutes away from merging her life and her father's failing company with Marcus. Marcus was handsome, rich, and utterly passionless, regarding her with the polite, vacant stare of a corporate executive analyzing a spreadsheet. This was not a wedding. It was a hostile takeover, a cold contract securing the collective wealth and solvency of two vast family empires. Daphne had spent sleepless nights trying to justify this sacrifice, repeating the mantra that passion was childish and stability was maturity. But as the officiant cleared his throat, a deep silence fell, and in that silence, a silent scream erupted in her chest. It was the echo of a forgotten life. A foolish, fierce vow whispered under a sheltering oak tree years ago, before her mother married his father. Before he became Elias, the forbidden stepbrother sleeping across the hall, the tormenting, beautiful ghost of her past. She gripped the bouquet, the stems digging into her palms, a small, desperate act of defiance against her fate. Every breath felt like a brick sealing her into a tomb of silk and diamonds. She had promised herself silence regarding Elias, burying the intense, illicit love they shared. But the foundation of that silence was now cracking, and the sound of the wedding march was no longer celebratory. It was the accelerating drumbeat of her inevitable doom, a doom that was about to be spectacularly derailed. Stop the wedding! The voice wasn't just loud. It was an emotional thunderclap, raw, untamed, and charged with the desperation of a man who had already lost everything and was now risking ruin for a final chance. It ripped through the polished sanctity of the room, freezing the 300 high society guests mid-gasp. Every head snapped toward the sound. There, framed in the archway, stood Elias. He was a vision of reckless, visceral defiance, his tailored jacket open, his eyes blazing like a man who had literally fought his way across continents to defy fate. Daphne's breath hitched, a dry, choked sound caught in her throat. She hadn't seen him in a year, not since his self-exile to a remote project, unable to live under the same roof as his sister and manage their escalating, forbidden feelings. Elias stalked down the long aisle, his steps deliberate and powerful, ignoring the frantic whispers and the shrill cries of their mothers. He didn't spare Marcus a glance. His focus was a burning, tangible force, locked solely on Daphne. He stopped inches from the altar, his presence overwhelming the scent of lilies with raw heat. "She is not marrying you," he stated, his voice now low, vibrating with a guttural certainty that silenced the crowd completely. "She is mine." In that electrifying moment, the final, frayed thread of Daphne's forced composure didn't break in fear. It snapped in a rush of ecstatic, forbidden recognition. She finally heard the deep, ancient, undeniable claim of her soulmate over the lies of convenience, and the public chaos of the unmasking began. Chaos erupted instantly among the guests and family, but Elias stood his ground. He turned his blazing gaze on their parents, who were now scrambling and shrieking threats. "Before you hide behind your rules about family titles, you need to hear the truth you worked so hard to bury. Daphne and I weren't brought together by your marriage. We were first." He delivered the revelation like a poisoned arrow aimed at their corporate hearts. "We were inseparable neighbors at 7, and we fell desperately in love at 16. 2 whole years before you two even met at that conference and legally forced us into being siblings." The confession was a surgical strike, revealing that their bond was forged by genuine, powerful affinity, not mere legal artifice. Marcus, the intended groom, remained unervingly still, observing the disintegration of the ceremony with detached, professional curiosity, a silent observer of the spectacle. Daphne's mother lunged forward, her voice a hysterical plea. "That is a despicable lie. You are destroying every legacy and every merger we worked for." Elias offered a slow, dangerous, triumphant smile. It confirmed every secret memory Daphne had fought to suppress. The late-night trysts, the stolen kisses, the heart-stopping moment they realized their parents were dating. This was more than just forbidden love. It was a desperate, violent snatching of a second chance. Elias was throwing her a lifeline. Daphne knew she had to choose right now between the lie of wealth and the messy, dangerous truth of her heart. A choice that forced them into immediate, frantic sanctuary. That frantic search for sanctuary led Elias and Daphne to a dimly lit, dusty utility room. A stark, humble contrast to the opulent battlefield outside. He closed the heavy door, muffling the shouts of their family, and the air immediately grew thick with years of unspoken history. He took her trembling hands in his touch a physical grounding force against the panic. Do you remember the summer before sophomore year, before the step-sibling nightmare began? He murmured, brushing his thumb over her skin, pulling her back to their origin story. She nodded, tears finally stinging her eyes. He spoke of the broken-down treehouse behind her old home, their secret sanctuary. You used a rusty key to scratch our initials, D+E, deep inside the hatch. We promised then that if, by some cruel twist of fate, we weren't married by 25, we would find each other, fix that old treehouse, and start over. The vow was childish, yet the memory of soft summer light, the scent of pine, and boundless youthful hope felt infinitely more binding than the $1,000,000 wedding dress she wore. The memory wasn't just sweet, it was powerful proof, a testament to a love forged by fate, not by parental contracts. The step-sibling title became the cruel wall that masked their fierce, existing connection. That treehouse was the foundation of the life they were stolen from, and now, standing breathless and defiant amidst the scandal, they were finally reaching for the keys to their shared future, unaware their brief sanctuary was about to be invaded. The parents found them, bursting into the utility room with faces contorted by aristocratic rage and fear over their shattered plans. Elias's father, the architect of their combined fortunes, delivered the stakes with chilling, corporate precision. If you walk out on this, Daphne, your father's import-export company, which is currently a shell propped up by our acquisition deal, defaults by the end of the week. We liquidate everything. You condemn your entire family to financial ruin, Elias, all for a fleeting whim of passion. The choice was a brutal zero-sum game. Her family's solvency versus her soul's happiness. This was the true, agonizing price of blood loyalty. Daphne's mother, grasping desperately at her pearls, pleaded, "Marcus honors the contract. Think about the debt, the scandal." Elias stepped forward, shielding Daphne with his body, his jaw clenched tight. "The contract is a lie you all created. You used our step-sibling bond, hoping it would crush our real, earlier connection." He looked only at Daphne, his commitment a physical shield. "The decision is yours. But I swear, I'd rather be bankrupt with you, living off ramen and working side by side, than remain the sole heir of this loveless empire without you. If you choose me, we start from zero. But we start free and honest." The pressure was immense, designed to shatter their hope. Then, a voice cut through the despair, a voice neither of them expected to hear, offering a technical, shocking path to freedom. Just as the argument hit its breaking point, a storm of legal threats and screaming, a smooth, authoritative voice cut through the noise. Marcus, the discarded groom, finally stepped forward from the doorway, holding up the neatly folded prenuptial agreement. "You're all missing the core technical point of my contract's specific escape clause," he announced, his tone perfectly measured, silencing everyone. The marriage could only be legally voided if a prior, provable legal claim to the bride existed. The ruin clause was meant to deter cold feet, not a legitimate legal claim. He paused, adjusting his tie with cool confidence. "You see, I never wanted this sham marriage. I was hired by your mother, Elias, to secure the merger, knowing your feelings existed, but I do not reward dishonesty." Marcus then dropped the true bomb. He had intercepted his now mother-in-law's private correspondence, a documented admission that Elias and Daphne were childhood sweethearts before the family merger. That correspondence, now notarized, constitutes a provable prior claim. It supersedes the step-sibling artifice and legally voids the ruinous financial penalty. Marcus was a mercenary with an unexpected ethical boundary. He was a corporate man, but he wasn't cruel. Your mother wanted the merger more than she feared the truth coming out, he revealed. But the truth is out now. The choice is no longer conditional on solvency. It is simply one of the heart, without fear of bankruptcy. With the contract voided and their families stunned into silence, Daphne and Elias knew they had to seize this window of opportunity and flee. Marcus's stunning revelation bought Daphne and Elias a critical 24-hour escape window and freedom from financial ruin. They immediately fled the mansion, driving until they reached a secluded, simple seaside cottage, a place blissfully unknown to their families. The atmosphere in the small space was charged, electric, magnifying the intimacy. They spent hours simply talking, bathed in the soft, cool light of the moon, systematically peeling back the layers of fear and denial they had maintained for years. Daphne, finally shedding the oppressive wedding gown, confessed the profound, crushing loneliness of the arranged marriage path, the cold desperation with which she had tried to psychologically erase Elias. Elias confessed his absolute despair when he left, thinking he was saving her from scandal, only to return and find the wedding invitation. I couldn't stand the thought of you building a life with a stranger when I knew the rhythm of your heart, Daphne, he whispered, his voice rough with years of unshed tears. The silence that followed was thick with repressed desire. He reached out, tracing the delicate curve of her collarbone, a hesitant, tender touch that felt like a universe-shifting earthquake to them both. Do you still want this ruin with me? He asked, his question no longer about money, but about their future, their life. There is no ruin, she countered, leaning into his touch, her voice trembling with emotion. There is only choosing what has always been true. With those words spoken, the emotional ground was laid for the irreversible, defining action they both knew had to follow. The kiss that followed was no longer hesitant. It was a physical apology for the years of separation, a gentle acknowledgement of the pain endured, but it quickly escalated into something far more urgent and necessary. It was more than lust. It was a profound, spiritual homecoming, the convergence of two souls separated by cruel fate. Every seeking touch, every ragged breath, was layered with decades of forbidden memory. The nervous first touches, the late-night hallway whispers, the agonizing silent longing at countless family dinners. As they made love, the act transcended mere physical release, becoming their ultimate, irreversible choice, a full-body commitment to their truth. They shed the constraints of their step-sibling titles, the crushing weight of their parents' expectations, and the suffocating wealth they were born into. It was a raw, vulnerable confession, a physical covenant that utterly superseded contracts and bloodlines. Daphne held on to him, not just with her body, but with her very soul, feeling her identity finally fuse safely into his. This was the precise moment their secret, forbidden past crystallized into their undeniable, fiercely protected future. In the quiet, exhausted aftermath, wrapped in a single blanket on the floor, they knew the chaos of yesterday had purchased this singular, perfect clarity. Their choice was absolute, sealed by a connection that would endure long after their parents' drama faded to a footnote, and it was time to return to the mansion to face that drama head-on. The next morning, fortified by their reunion and their commitment, Daphne and Elias returned to the mansion, armed not with contracts, but with the conviction of their public truth. The fallout was immediate and severe. Their parents, still reeling from Marcus's betrayal, were furious, threatening complete and utter financial disinheritance, even if the primary contract was void. The tense, final gathering took place in the library. Daphne's mother was stopped mid-sentence when Daphne spoke, her voice steady and clear, ringing with finality. I am not marrying Marcus, and I am not your stepdaughter marrying your stepson. You tried to define us by legal artifice, and that definition is void. She looked directly at her mother and then at Elias's father. I am Daphne, the woman who chooses Elias, the man I have loved since we were children, the man I will marry. She took off her last diamond accessory, a token of their wealth, and placed it on the mahogany table. Elias echoed her conviction, addressing his father. You cannot control true connection. The contracts of business are voided by the contract of our hearts. The claim of the heart is the only legal binding that matters now. The families finally faced the cold, hard reality. They could either accept the legitimate prior bond of their children or lose them entirely. The name Stepbrother had finally been shed. They were simply Daphne and Elias, a couple whose history was now public, undeniable, and fiercely protected. A couple ready to build a new future from the ruins of the old. 2 months later, Daphne stood on the sun-drenched beach where Elias had first truly proposed. Not with a massive rock, but with a simple question and a kiss of promise. A humble silver band now gleamed on her finger. Their ceremony was small, intimate, and entirely funded by Elias's modest savings and Daphne's liquidated jewelry. It was attended only by Marcus, who had become a surprisingly loyal friend and advisor, and a few close friends who chose love over scandal. Daphne wore a simple white dress woven with sea glass, and Elias wore a suit that was perfectly, happily pressed. As they exchanged vows, the moment was everything the first wedding had not been. Genuine, deeply felt, and infused with the exhilarating scent of hard-won freedom. She looked at Elias, now officially her husband, and saw the boy from the treehouse, the tormented stepbrother who carried her secret, and the fiercely protective man who had risked everything, all unified in one perfect image. Their family empires had suffered the inevitable scandal and financial hit, but they endured. The old hurts and titles had faded, replaced by the unified, unshakable strength of their bond. They had chosen love over legacy, honesty over fortune, and in doing so, had created a constellation of their own, where the forbidden stars finally aligned and shone brightly. The end of the drama was the beginning of their true, hard-earned life together. If this story gave you all the feels, please like this video and subscribe for more forbidden romance and dramatic plot twists every day.